Hey everyone, it's Friday, April 23rd. Welcome to episode 7 of my podcast, Is Breakfast Included? Now today on the podcast, I sit down with my good friend Gil Devine. Now Gil and his wife Nicole own a company called Divinenoise out of Portland, Oregon. And they make instrument cables. And they make a lot. And Gil makes every one of them. He's made cables for the likes of Prince, Bob Dylan, Jesse Tobias of Morrissey, and Paul Gilbert, and the list goes on and on and on. Now, we talked a little bit about instrument cables, and we talked about pizza, we talked about breakfast, we talked about diving with great white sharks, and we talked about Tony Orlando. He'll tell you all about it, so let's get to it. Tell everyone who you are.
My name is Gil Devine. I am the owner of divinenoise. We manufacture cables.
Instrument cables, yeah?
Instrument cables. We also do XLR cables. I designed a cable that we put it out a couple of years ago. So yeah, we do XLR speaker cables as well. But everything we make is our own proprietary cable. We don't really use a third party's cable. So everything is our stuff.
Cool. So the company is called Divinenoise. How hard was that to come up with a name, Gil?
That was probably the easiest thing to do. Divine being my last name. And I've always liked the word noise.
Yeah.
I've always, I don't know if you're familiar with the record label Amphetamine Reptile from the late 80s, 90s. But their logo it was just this big noise with Amphetamine Reptile. And it would just always look so cool. And just the music I listened to and I used to make, was noisy, noise. So I've always loved the word noise. So
and I take it Gil's guitar cables was taken. That's why.
No, it's just, I wanted to, looking back on it, I kind of wish I was a little further removed, but it kind of was what it was, or it is what it is. I don't know. I definitely didn't, Divine's my last name. It's not, a biblical reference or a holy reference. It's just the last name I was given.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think it just kind of stuck.
Yeah.
And it really, it didn't seem like that was like the smallest thing. And like, I know normally naming a business or a band or, a product, it's usually the hardest thing, but for some reason, Divinenoise really just popped. I mean, it was the easiest thing to come up with.
Yeah. It's got a nice ring to it.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. So before we get into any more of the cables, man, I heard you used to work for Tony Orlando. Am I correct?
Yeah. I used to, when I was, I think 12 or 13, I know it was before I could legally do it because I originally lied about my age to get a job there, but it was Penguin's Frozen Yogurt. And I don't know if you remember if they had those in Texas in the 80s, but in California, they were everywhere. And Tony Orlando owned the store in Palm Desert, California, where I grew up. And I worked there for a few years until they, I think at one time they found out I lied about my age.
Till they busted him for those child labor laws, huh?
And I remember I don't know if I was fired and then rehired when I was older or just laid off until I turned the right age. But it was a while before they found out. I wouldn't see him all the time. He would, pop in and, every once in a great while. And, he was a sweet dude. He was a nice guy. I remember that. and I, totally knew who he was, even though I was, I think 12 or 13 or whatever. But I, you know, totally knew that he was, he was Tony Orlando. So, but yeah, I did that job for a while.
Cool. And so you played in a band, correct?
Yeah, I played in a few bands, and when I was probably 20 to maybe 18 to 25 ish, and then I kind of, it got to the point where I could either continue making no money doing what I was doing and go on tour and come out broke, or actually probably dead. Or I could become a guitar tech and make money. So I chose the guitar tech route.
Okay. So did you work for any artists you can mention, or?
Oh yeah, um, geez, I worked for Yola Tango for 10 years. Um, I worked for the White Stripes. I worked for Lucinda Williams. Um, I worked for the National. Um, I worked for Third Eye Blind. I worked for, um,
We share an artist, don't we?
that's right, Josh Ritter. Yeah, there's so many artists where, you do one or two tours with, and you kind of file back in your mind, and yeah, but that's right, Josh Ritter. um I almost forgot. So,
So
yeah.
when you were touring, is that when you started your venture into building cables or making cables, or why cables and not like go into making pedals? Like,
um well, I started repairing cables before I was a touring tech, because I was broke and couldn't afford to just buy new ones. So I would repair them there then. But when I started touring as a tech, it was, I saw cables as the weakest link. As we're talking early 2000s, and there there was really a lot of crappy cables out then. So it wasn't there were companies that would give a bunch of free cables to bands, and they would break. And so the thing I hate, and I'm sure you can relate, is when something breaks, and during a show, or something's malfunctioning, and having to go out in front of who knows how many people and fix it. I
it's the
hated that.
loneliest feeling in the world.
It's it certainly is.
It seems like time stops, and everyone is just right above you, just tapping their foot, waiting on you. The entire crowd. But this isn't about me, is it?
And yeah, so I wanted to make sure that I never had to experience that, or I you know that I did everything I could to not have to experience it. So I started building cables, my own cables, then for the bands I've worked for. And when I was, over the years, I kind of, touring just got to be kind of a drag for me. And it was just being gone all the time. I kind of wanted to be home. So I planned an exit strategy out of touring. And you know I already had a list of bands that I'd already built cables for. So that my cables lasted, and people enjoyed or liked them. So I stuck with cables. And there was a there was a big hole in the market for really quality stuff that wouldn't break and that wasn't full of hype too. So I chose cables because it just seemed, even though I have a background in guitar repair and amp repair, and I used to build pedals and signal splitters, for pedal boards I built, and I could have went into any of those things, but I don't know, for some reason I just stuck with cables, and it just seemed, things seem to click together with this company. We've been a company for what is it, 20 it's 21 now, so since '09, so we're in our 12th year. And things, when things like kind of are meant to be, or when things work out seamlessly, it's like, and things are really easy, it's like it's hard to turn down, or it's hard to want to do other things, because things just kind of flow, and they and it just, everything clicked and worked out.
Yeah. And
So
and it's just you and your wife, yeah, that do everything. You don't have a crew building cables.
We have no, yeah. As of right now, and I can't see it changing, I've made every single cable that says divinenoise on it. So whether you see it in a shop in Australia, at one of our dealers in Australia, or Japan, or Detroit, it's like I've made every one of those cables, regardless of what artist you see. I made, if it says divinenoise on it, I made it. And we're literally talking about thousands of cables. Like, I can't even give a number, because I have no idea. But yeah, so it's Nicole and I, my wife Nicole and I, and for the last 2 years we've had Joanna Bulmy, who she plays bass in Stephen Malcolmus and the Jicks.
Mm-hmm.
She's been working with us part-time for it'll be almost 2 years soon, and she'll help Nicole with retail packaging, and just help us out here, whatever we need to kind of make our jobs easier. Joanna does it, so yeah. It's really 2.5 of us, but the bulk of everything is just Nicole and I.
Right on. I know some of the artists you've made cables for, and I mean, there were some pretty big bands, and then some not so big bands. Is there one artist that approached you, or you were approached by, that you were like, wow, I get to make their cables? Or are you kind of just like, do you disconnect yourself from the celebrity of making cables for, somebody big?
It's usually, like, if you look at our website, the artists we have listed, the bands that aren't, really big, huge bands, those are the bands that I'm actually fans of, that I love. And those are the bands that I get like excited to make their cables. And I mean, making Prince's cables, shit, that was that was really cool. But making, I don't know, Dwayne Dennison from the Jesus Lizard, making his cables, shit, it's right up there with Prince's, or Bob Dylan's even, or
Yeah.
So it's I get to make some of my heroes cables, and yeah, I mean it while I'm making them, it's, sometimes I'll listen to their music, or sometimes it's just they're in a big hurry to get out the door. So and yeah, I don't do anything differently to their cables than I do someone who orders from our dealer. They're all the same. There's no special treatment that goes into Nels Klein's cables than than the ones that sit at or the ones that are at one of our dealers. And the ones that are listed there are some bands on there that will buy, that I know that use them, that'll buy direct at a dealer and won't go through us, so I don't list them. I only list people that actually purchase the cables through us through our artist program. I've had artists order from our website that pay full price, and I don't mention them because they're, it's kind of more anonymous, I guess.
Yeah.
If they want to, represent our company or then I'm sure they'll ask. But for the most part, just a dude buying a cable, or So I kind of I leave off, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
This last year when there was no live shows, how did that affect your business? Did it slow you down, or were people still ordering cables? Were you still making cables as regularly as you have been?
Yes. There are a few different aspects to our business, where some are our dealer orders, and those, for a bit it slowed down quite a bit, like the first few months of the pandemic. But then, the latter half, we were slammed. And then there are people who order directly off the site, because, not every dealer, or most dealers, don't have every combination, because there's so many different, plug combinations and colors. And so so we, people we offer people to, order something really custom off our site. And I think that really picked up. But then the third part of our cables, or our business, which is probably, it's how we started, was, the artists and, touring artists, and making looms, and making, just all kinds of custom stuff for touring bands. And that completely stopped. Like, completely stopped. And, it was no, secret why. I mean, it was, we knew it was nothing to do with us, but, bands weren't touring. So why would they want to order looms and, all kinds of stuff? Because, no one really knew when they were going to start touring again. So yeah, that part of our business just completely stopped. And hopefully it'll come back now that, we're closer to having live shows return.
Yeah, it seems like it, right?
Yeah.
I see a little shining light at the end of a very small tunnel, but it's better than nothing.
Yeah. I just, throughout the whole time, I just felt so bad with, crews, mainly the crews, not, just not having an income, and just being.
Well, I do know I remember receiving a couple of texts from you this year, so that was very much appreciated. You checking in on me.
Yeah.
That was. I mean, yeah. I'm being serious right now. I'm saying it with a smile, but you did. You sent me a couple of messages asking how I was doing. So
yeah. I mean, it's. I just put myself. I think I contacted just about all my, guitar tech and touring friends, and it had to be, the government didn't really do, a ton, considering there are people out there with, with zero income all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And, I'm just happy that I, was able to, make a living off, making cables and stuff. And I I don't know what I would do if if my livelihood stopped.
Yeah.
So I just felt so bad for all the crew, the touring people.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
On to a lighter note.
Yeah.
I've read and I've heard, and I think I've actually witnessed, you have an affinity for pizza. And you're based in Portland. So what is the best pizza place there in Portland?
Oh, without a doubt, it's A Pizza Shoals. Have we taken you there?
No. We've talked
No.
about that.
Yeah, I think we normally do breakfast with you when you come into town, or didn't we? I know we've done it at least once.
Yeah.
But they have like really kind of, well, not weird hours, but it's like 5 to 9 or whatever, 5. Yeah. So it's like, that's like sound check and touring time. So unless you have a day off in Portland, the odds, probably not going we probably won't take you to pizza because of the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I stopped touring, I wanted a place where I could go once a week, and like clockwork, I would be there. I wanted, just a regular spot. And so Nicole and I started going to this pizza place, A Pizza Shoals in Portland. And so for every Saturday at 5:00, we're there. Every single Saturday at 5:00, we're there. Well, except during the pandemic when we've had to do the
curbside
takeout. Yeah. In fact, I had my own pizza bag. I bought my own pizza bag. But yeah, we go. I mean, unless there's very, very few instances in the past. I think it's 9 years now where we have not been there. I sometimes, if one of us isn't in town, the other one will go alone or with a friend. But yeah, I mean, it's we have a standing reservation Saturday at 5
without fail, huh?
Without fail. So I mean, there's twice a year I dive with great white sharks, and that's the only time I miss it. So, but yeah.
You dive with great white sharks?
Yeah, in the cage.
Why aren't we talking? Why hasn't this whole thing been about that?
I don't.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's. Oh, I'll send you some photos and videos. Yeah, that was the one of the things I've always wanted to do ever since I was a kid. But when I started touring, I never knew where I was going to be. You can't plan. These things fill up like, a year to 9 months ahead of time. So, it's impossible to commit to something that far in advance. So once I stopped touring, I wanted to do it, and I did it, and I fell in love with it. And I do it twice a year. So
man, that's awesome.
Yeah. It's one of the coolest things I've ever done. And I mean, they're just so huge, and they're kind of docile. They just swim around you and they look at you, and they each one has its own personality, and they're not like these mindless eating machines. Like they're conscious of what's going on, and every year they go to the same spot in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It's about 150 miles off of Ensenada. It's called Guadalupe Island, and they go there to mate.
Wow.
And the females do it every other year because they have the pups on the off year, but they all show up there, and there's a way you can ID them. So they all have names, and you see them there, time and time again. and it's like it's pretty amazing.
Cool.
Yeah. So
Well, the name of this podcast is Breakfast Included. That's what it's called. It's not a very serious podcast. So, you know what my next question is. If breakfast was included, Gil, what would you be having?
oh, are we talking continental breakfast, like at hotels where that's where you ask breakfast is included?
See, you get the jet. You get you get the
Oh,
meaning behind the
absolutely.
name. But no, if breakfast was included, just where would you want to have breakfast?
Okay. There's a spot in downtown Portland that I've taken you to, called Mother's.
Yeah.
They have the crunchy French toast. I'd want to go there
And
and
I've
have the
tried to
crunch.
replicate this at home and I was unsuccessful.
Yeah, they have. She put out a cookbook, and I think that might be one of the recipes. But I mean, they've been closed. Oh man, I haven't been to Mother's in a long time, like over a year. But they with the I mean, it's essentially COVID that closed them. But with the riots and stuff, and or not riots, but the protesting last year in downtown Portland, a lot of the places have their windows boarded up, and last time I drove by, they were definitely boarded up. But I'm sure they'll be making, they'll open again, hopefully. But yeah, that's what I would have is the crunchy French toast.
Yes, with bacon.
Yeah, crispy bacon. Yeah, that's exactly what I would have.
No, I don't think about that breakfast very often, Gil.
Yeah, we have two spots that we take people to when they're in town. For breakfast is Mother's, and for dinner it's pizza. And I'm not sure we've taken people anywhere else, but it's usually like those two restaurants. And yeah, they're great. They're great. But if we're talking like continental breakfast, I would probably go for cereal. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, man, that's really all I have, man. I just wanted to talk to you for, a bit and let everyone get to know you better. Where can they find you online, like on social media?
On social media, I don't have any personal social media accounts, but it's kind of through Divine Noise. The Instagram is at Divine Noise, and the Twitter, I believe, is at Divine Noise, and the Facebook, I think it's at The Real Divine Noise. Yeah, that's or our website is divinenoise.com.
Right on, man.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Bernie, for it's great to talk to you. And yeah, I mean, I was excited about talking with you, and and catching up.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you for taking the time this evening to do it. It was good to catch up with you before the interview, and it was great talking to you and learning about Tony Orlando and his yogurt shop. But let's keep in touch.
Absolutely. All right, buddy.
Have a good night, man. Tell Nicole I said hello.
Too. I will. I will.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Well, right on. That was Gil Divine. Check out their website at thedivinenoise.com and give them a follow on Instagram. And if you're a player, check out their cables. Well, that's about it for today. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.